Hey everybody, it is Kellen Nitro from NITRO'Mania TV's Wrestling Unlimited, coming at you with a classic pay-per-view NITRO'S take that you guys voted on over on Twitter. So before going into WrestleMania weekend this year, I know it was kind of a lackluster WrestleMania weekend, but due to the lack of the independent content that would be on the channel, I put it out there saying, hey guys, what classic WrestleMania should I watch? And I put a little caveat on there. I wanted to see the best of the worst. What was the worst WrestleMania pay-per-view of all time? And I picked 4. I did not pick 32, which a lot of people consider is the best or the absolute worst WrestleMania pay-per-view of all time, just because it's so freaking long. However, the 4 I picked are generally the 4 that are considered to be in that options. Well, the results came in, and the winner was WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 9 took place on April 4th, 1993 from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. Actually, that's a lie. The Caesars Palace parking lot in Las Vegas, Nevada. The car park, where you park your rental, basically, and walk into the hotel. That's where WrestleMania was in 1993. Wrestling was in a different state back then. Decided to use a different source for watching this again as well. Instead of using the WWE Network, I used this little puppy as it slides into view. This is the WrestleMania 9 tape from the original WrestleMania The Collection box set from 1997. I still have mine. It's in good condition, and no, I'm not parting with it. I'm still keeping it in my collection. I bought it way back in the day in 1998 from HMV, if you remember what those stores were like. It cost me, I think, about the time there, maybe 60, 70, 75 bucks, something like that. I know that I had to pay allowance for a few weeks to cover this, but it was worth it. It has the first 13 WrestleManias on it. It has a prime cut of WrestleMania 1 with no music dubbing on it at all. It's like straight from the closed circuit tape. The same with WrestleMania 2 and 3, and I still pop these out once every year to check them out. I've been checking them out over this weekend, and of course been paying a little classic attention to what this is, what this one, because of you guys voting it in. So anyway, this is not a review per se. There are better reviews of this show on the internet. I will throw a link below to the OSW review episode for WrestleMania 9, which is the preeminent source for all things WrestleMania 9. They knocked it out of the park in that episode. If you go and watch it, it's one of their classics, and I can't hold a candle to their style, their production, whatever. So I'll throw a link down at the bottom. What I got here, though, is just some notes on some stuff that, kind of piqued my interest throughout the night. So let's go and dig through this, shall we? This was the first Mania to be outdoors. WrestleMania 7 was supposed to be outdoors, but the Gulf War changed all that. In a dark match earlier on, Tito Santana defeated Papa Shango in 8 minutes. This was Tito's first Mania victory since WrestleMania 1. He has a 2-7 lifetime record at WrestleMania. I think I saw earlier on in the night that Dolph Ziggler, after this year's WrestleMania 36, has almost a comparable record as of such. Yikes. It's the record nobody wants. This was Jim Ross, JR's, first WWE appearance on screen as an announcer. He and Bobby Heenan had recorded some post-WrestleMania stuff in Stanford the week before, but this is it. The debut of the Black Hat. Good old JR, Jim Ross, in a toga. First time out. Again, wrestling in 1993, weird. Maybe the only thing that could hold a candle to it is wrestling in 2020, which is weird because of everything is weird right now. We have a three-man booth with JR, Savage, and Heenan, and Gorilla as host. Monsoon was under the weather that day, so JR was picked as a play-by-play guy, and Gorilla just popped in from time to time as the host of the television portion of the event. So we've seen him kind of, tee up matches and video packages and such. The opening few minutes are some of the funniest pieces of WWE TV ever produced. From Gorilla's intro to all the Roman Greek mythology, Macho Man Savage on the sedan with the Vesto Virgins, to Heenan riding the wrong way onto Camel. Heenan almost backhands an ostrich on the way out to the ring. Hysterical, great comedy, and, awesome stuff. The opening contest on the pay-per-view is for the Intercontinental title. The champion is Shawn Michaels taking on Tatanka, and they both have corner women in this one, or valets in this. Shawn Michaels' valet is debuting Luna Vachon. Tatanka's valet is HBK's former valet and main squeeze Sensational Sherry. This is Luna's WWF debut. She's the corner woman, of course, for HBK here to prevent Sherry from interfering in this match. The bell rings. Michaels is a bump machine early on for Tatanka. This, of course, was in the middle of Tatanka's undefeated streak push, of course. And Michaels with a super kick as Tatanka comes off the top of a chop attempt. That leads to Tatanka getting tossed to the outside and our first Sherry-Luna face-off. And it's a great build to what Luna is all about. Michaels with a modified victory roll for 2. This is a hell of an opener, one of the best matches of the card all night. Dare I say, potential match of the night potential here. Tatanka hulks up and hits a cross body for 2, and then a catapult HBK into the ring post for only a 2 count, and an extreme back and forth. A huge crouch chant for Sherry. HBK though grabs the ref and pulls him to the outside, and that leads to a count out victory for Tatanka. The run time for this is 18:30. And it's a quality 18:30. It's no pushing around on that one, but it's a very quality 18 minutes and 30 seconds. Post-match, Luna jumps Sherry and body slams her on the outside. That kind of establishes Luna as kind of the lead heel valet now in WWF, and kind of establishes her as a threat. And of course, she'd have a very lucrative career in the WWF for years as the valet for Bam Bam Bigelow, later on the valet for Goldust, and then establishing herself as one of the fiercest women's competitors during the Attitude Era. So the next contest, the Head Shrinkers versus the Steiner brothers. Very heavy WCW influence here early on. JR on commentary, and the Steiner brothers versus the Samoan SWAT team. I mean, the Head Shrinkers, managed by Alpha here at this point. And Bill Alfonso's the referee here, so we got a little ECW influence there. Incredible double diving Steiner lines from Rick and Scott to start things up. The match is a good showcase for 2 newer teams to the WWF at this time. A Frankensteiner by Scott gets the free. It's a solid match. Runtime again on this one is 14:22. Our next contest, Crush versus Doink. Doink, brah, making little kids cry, brah. If you watch OSW review, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. The match starts with Doink spraying Crush with a flower and a hot start. This is off of that. The Matt Bourne Doink, which this was at the time, is the best Doink. This was a creation of Pat Patterson and Bruce Pritchard, as we've come to find out that this was a mix of Stephen King's It and Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons, because Matt Bourne had been hanging around after doing job duty on WWE TV one day, smoking a cigarette in the locker room with his hair kind of down, and he kind of looked like a sad version of Krusty the Clown. So they figured, well, why not make him a clown? So, the finish. Crush has the Hawaiian Vice on Doink, where a second Doink jumps out from underneath the ring and waffles Crush with a prosthetic arm. And then there's a mime gimmick in the ring, and one Doink exits the ring, and Matt Bourne's Doink gets the 1-2-3. Of course, the second Doink was Steve Curren, formerly Skinner in the WWF, and as we found out on the FCW documentary, this was his last night in the WWF at the time. He had left the company right after, but before they left, they asked him, hey, could you shave your face and show up at WrestleMania? We have an idea for a spot for you, and of course he obliged. And, later on down the line, this kind of helped in the formation of FCW. And, it's kind of weird how stuff works like that, but, life is life. And this, of course, is a great microcosm of what wrestling was like in 1993. Just batshit insane. Yeah, it's such a weird year. 1993 is a weird year. 2003, in my opinion, is a weird year. We may look back at 2020 as a weird year as well. But to me, 1993 and 2003 are just both really weird years in the wrestling annals. Next match, Razor Ramon versus Bob Backlund. Always thought that this match was a weird booking. Razor's still a big heel at this point. It was during this match that Savage brings up the short-lived Bret Luger feud. Yes, the narcissist Lex Luger and Bret the Hitman Hart. It kicked off at the WrestleMania brunch earlier that day. It's short-lived because when Hogan leaves WWF in June, Vince is desperate for a all-American babyface to feud with Yokozuna at that time over the belt. So what we end up getting is the all-American Lex Luger flying in on the USS Intrepid on July 4th, and you've seen the lead up on this thanks to our buddy Nick Opolewski, who sent the request in via the Facebook group for me to review the Raw leading up to the Stars and Stripes Challenge from June 27th of 93. But anyways, the match is pretty snoozy, but Razor beats Bob with a small package. The two would flip-flop roles over the next year. Yeah, so Razor would end up being a heel no longer during the summer. The matches that he had with the 1-2-3 Kid would prove to turn him face and turn the Kid into a superstar. And Bob Backlund, however, would come back during the fall of 1993, and, well, fall of 1993, and I think like the early bit of 1994, I can't remember which, but he cuts the promo with McMahon on Monday Night Raw and ends up choking him out and just ends up being just this crazy lunatic trying to get his belt back. And he eventually does, but he holds on to the belt for like 6 days, and then Diesel beats him in 9 seconds at the Garden, and so on and so forth. And there's the bright spot of Bob Backlund's return. We didn't see a promo for the first King of the Ring. Of course, that would be coming up on June 13th, 1993, and such a transitory pay-per-view. Maybe one day on the channel we'll get a chance to watch it. Mean Gene interviews Money Incorporated. Some great interviews here. It hypes the Mega Maniacs versus Money Incorporated. It's the first mention of Hogan's broken orbital bone and his black eye that he got during the jet ski accident. You know, the week before WrestleMania, Hogan is involved in a jet ski accident at his home, and you know, it was kind of touch and go whether he'd actually be able to show up and wrestle that weekend. So, you know, had that accident happen a couple of days later, Hogan would have not been on the card, at least as far as I understand it. So, WWF Tag Team Title match, Money Incorporated versus the Mega Maniacs. The match starts out hot with the Maniacs attacking Money Incorporated and doing the shirt ripping, etc. Of course, it's Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Hulk Hogan. Brutus has the face gimmick. Hogan has the Hulk Hogan gimmick. So, Money Incorporated decides to leave partway through, but the ref decides that if they do, they lose the belts too. This is the longest match on the card with a runtime of 18:27, and it feels all of the 18:27. The finish, the ref gets knocked down. I.R.S.'s briefcase is used against Money Inc. Jimmy Hart rolls in for the 3 count, but the Mega Maniacs get DQ'd because it was in Hogan's hands, and one of the Money Inc. guys, I think DiBiase, pushed it back, and whoa, like that, you know, into the ref's face. So, can kind of see how this match gets crapped on now. It's just making Hogan look good, while this whole pay-per-view is making Hogan look good. Strong return for Beefcake, though, in my opinion. He looked good. Obviously, very limited in what he could do, and that would be a story of the rest of his run, and then the jump to WCW and what he did from there on out. Limited at best. You know, would be nowhere near the performer from the mid-'80s and late 80s that we've seen on WWF television for the rest of his career due to the parasailing accident. But, you know, the fact that the guy could resume a career after that is something. Post-match, Hogan must pose, but the Megamaniacs find a briefcase again. They crack it open, and they see that there is a brick and a ton of money, and they start throwing the money out into the crowd. Natalie Cole is in the ring, or not in the ring, but in the arena. Natalie Cole, of course, the daughter of Nat King Cole, the famous soul singer, and she has a great career herself. And Dan Reichert, the president of Caesars, talking to Todd on how important it is. They talked about the ice hockey event that they had, which was like an exhibition game between, I think, like the Kings and Rangers back in 1993. And conditions were such that a swarm of locusts descended onto the rink during the game. I'm not making this up. And they had to delay the game for like 45 minutes or so until they could get people out to shoot the grasshoppers and the locusts off of the ice because of the lights and the cold temperature of the ice and everything. Of course, this is September in Vegas too. It's still probably about 70, 75 degrees out. Weird. Anyway. Backstage with Mr. Perfect is Mean Gene Okerlund. He pumps the upcoming match. Mr. Perfect versus the narcissist Lex Luger. And Luger with some mega babes makes a mega entrance. And Mr. Perfect, again, is mega over as a face. It's actually one of Luger's better matches in his career, in my opinion. The finish of the match, Luger hits Perfect with a small package and a 1-2-3. And once the pinfall hits, there's an instant knockout from the forearm by Luger onto Perfect. The runtime for this thing is 10:56, and yeah, it's one of Luger's better matches, and it's one of Perfect's better matches too from his WWF run. This is a decent encounter between both of them. Post-match, Perfect hits the back and jumps Luger. HBK, though, is there, and the two attack Luger. Ringside, Savage and Heenan get into it. It's just absolutely bonkers at this point. Next contest, Giant Gonzalez versus The Undertaker. The old question, did they really have to spray paint an ass crack on Giant Gonzalez's tights? Really? That's a little bit excessive, even for 1993. An amazing entrance by Taker with the funeral cart. This is the blow-off from Gonzalez's debut at the Royal Rumble in Sacramento. Gonzalez... I found that Giant Gonzalez, Jorge Gonzalez, always sold goofy. Like, it's hilarious watching him. You know, it's kind of like he gets punched and he does the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man gimmick. This is a brawling super heavyweight match, but Taker carries him. This is a, you know, kind of a watchable match here. It's by far not the best match on the card, but, you know, it's not overly bad either. It's terrible, but it's not the worst thing on this card. So the finish of the match is Whippleman throwing a cloth to Gonzalez. Remember, Whippleman's first gimmick in WWE was Dr. Harvey Whippleman as basically a heel psychiatrist. So he had access to this type of stuff, being a doctor. You know, Gonzalez takes out Bearer on the outside, and then Gonzalez smothers Taker with the cloth, and the ref throws the match. Yes, there was... not formaldehyde, but the gimmick that you put on the cloth and you sniff it and you go loopy. It might have been formaldehyde. I can't remember exactly. Remember, they sprayed ether on the cloth, and, you know, the old knockout gas from the cartoon, right? Where if you wanted to knock somebody out quick, you just put ether on this and then boom, good night. They're out for a while. This gives Taker the win by DQ, but Undertaker is out and he gets stretchered out. But is he out? We hear a gong, and then Taker stumbles out, and the mist is going, the green smoke, and Gonzalez has got the, oh my god, what is happening, look. Taker hits the ring, and within 3 big spoiler-esque flying clotheslines is able to knock Gonzalez off his feet, and Caesar's Palace security escorts Whippleman and Gonzalez out, and that would be basically the end of Giant Gonzalez in the WWE. There was a little bit after that, a little residual stuff going on after, but Jorge Gonzalez, Giant Gonzalez's run in WWE was not long-lived for this world, and Taker is named the winner. The runtime for this thing is 7:33, and yeah, it's not the worst match on this card by far. We'll see that at the very end of this thing, but it is fairly terrible. The main event spot is the Royal Rumble winner from 1993, Yokozuna, taking on Bret Hart in a singles match for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. The runtime is 8:55. Hart tries to use his technical wrestling abilities against Yokozuna, and Yokozuna, of course, being 500 pounds, give or take a few pounds here or there, is using his size advantage in this match. Hart gains control at the beginning, but Yokozuna comes back with a clothesline, a leg drop, an oriental nerve hold. At the time, you could say that. I don't think he could get away with that on commentary nowadays, just to be honest. But Hart regained the advantage when Yokozuna missed a running splash. Yokozuna applies another nerve hold, but misses a running splash again. Second time. The crowd's up for this, too. They're behind Bret Hart 100%. They start a USA chant. Unfortunately, Hart's from Calgary. That's in Canada. So, it should be Canada, but that doesn't get over in the States, so. He recovers and carries Hart to the middle of the ring, but Hart removes the protective padding before this happens on the turnbuckle on one of the corners of the ring and throws Yokozuna's head into the turnbuckle and applies a sharpshooter. His legs and his girth are so thick that Hart can barely get the sharpshooter on Yokozuna, but he finally gets it on. But it's so close to the rope that Fuji, Yokozuna's manager, Mr. Fuji, throws salt in Hart's eyes and enables Yokozuna to pin Hart to win the World Heavyweight Championship for his first title reign at 8:55 of the match. And this match itself, decent. It's a great technical worker versus giant match. Tells a great story. The heels, doing heelish things to beat the technical champion, so on and so forth. So if that pay-per-view goes off the air like it is, you can say, okay, King of the Ring is going to be Bret Hart versus Yokozuna in a rematch. Obviously, this is leading up for it. Wrong, brother, cuz Hogan must pose. Hulk Hogan hits the ring, basically to help Bret Hart out of the ring, and Mr. Fuji's cutting a heel promo and basically says, hey, Hulk Hogan, we'll put the title on the line right now just to embarrass America again, right? And of course, Hogan being, pro-American, I'm Hulkamania, I'm all-American, brother, is not going to take it laying down. So he hits the ring, the bell rings, and we get the WWF title match of Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania. This one only runs 22 seconds because it's big boot, leg drop. Well, there's salt. They try to do the salt thing again, but there's a kick, and the salt ends up in Yokozuna's eyes. And the big boot, the leg drop, the 1-2-3, and Hogan must pose. That's the worst match on this card. That's the worst match on this entire event. And it's also the worst thing WWF could do at this time, looking back in hindsight. Going into the steroid trial, going into everything along the lines, and it's all centered around, the speculation of Hulk Hogan. Is he legitimately, was he legitimately a big guy, or did he take steroids? Were steroids his vitamins, brother, for, all the how he looked and all the accolades and everything? Well, and you put the belt back on him. Yeah, not the greatest. And then a few months later at the King of the Ring, they end up taking the belt off of him as Hogan goes to shoot the Thunder in Paradise show. And we all know what happens off of that. Hogan jumps to WCW, and Hogan is persona non grata around the WWF for some years until about 2002 when he finally comes back in. But yeah, actually watching this, growing up as a kid, this was one of my favorite Manias, just due to the fact of just the cross-section of superstars that are in this thing. You got guys from the Hogan era and the era of the 80s and that stuff mixing with the new generation guys, and it's weird, it's awesome. But, watching it now as a 30-plus-year-old, you're watching it and it's like, oh man, this is just bad business all throughout. Even the venue is bad business. So overall production and everything, I'll give this event a 7 out of 10. on that front. Overall, the entire event, the way that the card goes and everything, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. How about that? So that'll be my final mark, as I'll knock 0.5 off because of the Hogan title change at the end. I'm not, you know, hating it as much as a lot of people do, but you know, I can see OSW's point, and I can see a lot of people's points on how this thing ends. It's not pretty at all. Alright folks, thanks a lot for tuning in over this WrestleMania week. I know it was a different one than we're used to. Let's hope for a better one in 2021. I'm Kellen Nitro, Later Days. If you like this stuff, spread the video around to let people know that I am here. Keep watching this space for more content. Thanks for tuning in. Kellen Nitro signing off for Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited.